A Republican congresswoman who built a political career as a mega firebrand says she's stepping down. Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation comes after her recent public feud with President Donald Trump. Journalist Steve Futterman has the details on this story, joining us this morning from Los Angeles. Nice to see you, Steve. So this is an ever-changing story. Very quickly, what more can you tell us this morning?
Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump, they have been very, very close for many, many years. Let's take a listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is just last year at the Republican National Convention as she talks about Donald Trump.
Today is a celebration. The American spirit is alive and well. And we have once again nominated for president the founding father of the America First movement, Donald John Trump.
Well, nothing looks like that could have gone wrong, but it sure has the past few weeks. This very close political relationship has really gone downhill. It primarily has to do, there are other factors, but it primarily has to do with the Jeffrey Epstein case. Marjorie Taylor Greene supports the release of those Epstein files. And until this week, when Donald Trump knew he would lose that battle, he was opposing the release. He really went after Marjorie Taylor Greene in the last 2 weeks or so, began not calling her Marjorie Taylor Greene, but Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lots of pressure on her. And last night, she announced she is resigning, and she blamed Trump. Take a listen.
Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States, whom I fought for.
So you've had situations before where political marriages go south, but I can't recall one going so south so quickly. These two, maybe a month ago, were still pretty close. And then the Epstein case comes up. She continues to say those files should be released. Donald Trump goes against her, starts calling her Marjorie Taylor Greene. Pressure mounts on her from outside sources, and she announces she will leave the House in January. So she'll still be a force, I'm sure, in politics, but she just won't be in the House. Quite a shock in Washington and really around the nation right now.
About the impact of her decision now, Steve, are there any concerns for the GOP?
Well, I think the GOP has some concerns. One of the reasons people believe, and she has not said this, she's alluded to it indirectly, but not said it flat out, there are safety concerns. When you go against Donald Trump, there are outside forces, supporters of Donald Trump, who go after you online, on social media, make threats against you, make death threats against you. Take a listen to Eric Swalwell. He's a Democrat, a congressman. He's been an opponent of Donald Trump. He says often it goes beyond Trump's words.
They think about it, but the number one reason they won't do it, and they tell us this, is personal security. They said the second I do that, my life changes, the death threats come at me, and you know, that like your spouse and your kids are saying, don't do that. I mean, that's the environment we're in right now.
And right now, Donald Trump is technically a lame duck. He's not going to be able to run for office again. He's had these pressures growing on him, the Epstein files, a pretty big defeat, even though he's trying to claim victory out of this defeat. He did not want these files released. They are going to be released. There are other pressures growing on him. Inflation, the public opinion polls going against him. So there may be some Republicans who are thinking, well, maybe I'll separate myself from Donald Trump. Well, if you do that, if you actually go against him, if you oppose some of his moves, there are ramifications amongst the MAGA movement, in the Republican Party, amongst the very, very fervent conservatives. So this might have an impact in the upcoming year. So still too early to say. Democrats feel very, very confident that a year from now, they will be taking over the House. But a year, of course, is a million years in the world of politics.
Absolutely. Steve Futterman in Los Angeles, thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Marianne.
And for a closer look at what Marjorie Taylor Greene's announcement means for President Trump and the MAGA movement, I'm now joined by Chris Galdieri. He's a political scientist at St. Anselm College and joining us this morning from Concord, New Hampshire. Nice to see you this morning.
Likewise, Marianne.
Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene's announcement might have caught some people by surprise. Other people might say they were not surprised, especially after watching her speak on the steps of Capitol Hill earlier this week. But looking at her resignation specifically, how much of a blow is this for Trump and the MAGA movement?
It's a pretty big one. It draws attention to the fact that there is a divide in this movement. And if you listen to what Greene was saying in her speech, she's essentially saying that, the true MAGA movement is on my side. The true MAGA movement would want these files to be released, wouldn't call me a traitor and that sort of thing. So I think it's a sign of, deepening fissures in the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. And then in practical terms, the Republicans have a pretty narrow majority in the House of Representatives. When Greene leaves in January, they will have one fewer vote. And it's really tough to get things done now with their narrow margin. Taking one vote away will make life for Speaker Mike Johnson and by extension Donald Trump a lot harder going forward.
Looking at the way President Trump handled the calls for the release of the Epstein files, although he ultimately agreed to support those calls, how damaging do you think the way he's handled it has been for him?
Well, I think the way for him to have handled it, the smart way to have handled it, would have been to say he supports it and then hope that that is the end of the story. Instead, he keeps doubling down, complaining about the fact that he signed them, attacking the Republicans who broke with him on this, and essentially reminding everybody that he flip-flopped on this issue. So I think it's not just that he had to change his position on this, but he had to change his position in a way that is drawing attention to the fact that he didn't want these released, reminding MAGA voters that he was on the wrong side of an issue that has been very close to the hearts of a lot of the people in this movement from day one.
Let's talk about the other issues causing rifts within the MAGA movement. Criticism that there's too much focus on foreign wars as opposed to more local issues like the H-1B visa. Whether the movement can tolerate openly racist and anti-Semitic members like Nick Fuentes. How is this dividing that movement? Where do you see things going now?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a split between, on the one hand, the really online folks, the folks who listen to Nick Fuentes and similar podcasters and don't see any problems with those sorts of racist or anti-Semitic sentiments and actors being part of their movement and part of their party. And then you have pushback from folks who are, I don't want to say more mainstream Republicans in the sense of, your Mitt Romneys and John McCain's of the past, but folks for whom that is a bridge too far. Folks for whom, the sight of Nick Fuentes at dinner with Trump and that sort of thing is just too much for them to bear. And so you're seeing a lot of division within the movement on that front. And as we look ahead to the midterm elections and as we look ahead to 2028, I think we're only going to see those rifts grow.
How worried do you think the party is then, talking about the midterms, given the divisions we're already seeing?
I think they're very worried. This year's off-year elections for governors in New Jersey and Virginia, for mayor of New York City, and then for a handful of other statewide offices in states like Pennsylvania and Georgia could not have gone worse for Republicans. It was a really resounding defeat for Republican candidates across the board. And I think Republicans looking ahead to 2026, yes, it's a long way off, but it's also tough to see anything that's going to change the trajectory. Donald Trump has been unpopular almost from the moment he resumed office back in January. His actions with regards to foreign wars and that sort of thing, again, I think are splitting the MAGA base, many of whom would like him to focus on domestic concerns first. And for the vast universe of voters who might have supported Trump last year, but not expected Project 25, not expected this sort of focus on bombing boats in the Caribbean and that sort of thing. They're wondering when prices are going to go down. They're wondering when Trump will be able to deliver on the bread and butter kitchen table issue promises that he made last year.
Chris Calderi, thank you so much for your time and for your insight.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.